I apologize in advance if my cat starts meowing through my recording. She has food and water. I'm not entirely sure why she's upset. Hello everyone, I am Sammy, your devoted manga otaku, and welcome to my manga space. Let me start off by saying that this is a spoiler-free review of the first 5 volumes of Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. This is a seinen, slice-of-life romance series. It's published by Kodansha Comics and is rated 16+. This manga is still ongoing, with 5 volumes available in print and online. Volume 6 will be available this month, and Volume 7 will be available in April. I actually found release dates all the way through to Volume 10, so this manga will be at least 10 volumes in length. A word of caution for some readers, this manga series is written for an adult audience and includes softcore sex and nudity. Okay friends, I invite you to grab some bean water or other beverage of your choice, and let's talk manga. Okay, so what is the gist of Sweat and Soap? The story follows 26-year-old Asako Yaeshima. Asako is living the dream working in the finance department for the toiletry company Liliadrop. Liliadrop's toiletries and cosmetics are incredibly popular with women, including Asako. But she doesn't use Liliadrop's great smelling soaps just because they're popular. Asako was bullied as a child because she sweats a lot, and as a result, she is always painfully aware and permanently anxious about her body odor. Asako arranges her whole life around keeping her perspiration at bay. She keeps quiet and tries not to move a lot for fear of working up a sweat. Plus, she spends her work breaks changing damp undershirts, cleansing her body with wipes, and reapplying deodorant. You can imagine how completely and utterly mortified she is when Kotaro Natori, Liliadrop's star product developer, gets a deep whiff of her in the company lobby and immediately asks to study her scent. Poor Asako is understandably horrified, but Kotaro explains that he needs ideas for new Liliadrop products and would like a week of her time to study her inspiring odor. Although the idea of being sniffed is embarrassing, Asako wants to help the man responsible for creating soaps that she loves. It's just some innocent sniffing, right? I mean, what could happen? I loved this. I had a feeling I would love this, but I loved it even more than I thought I would. I have a bad habit of not reading the synopsis when I buy manga because I like to be surprised when I'm reading. I like to go in blind. But when I saw the cover of Sweat and Soap, it looked steamy and it had great reviews, so I bought the first 5 volumes. I didn't even know it had a smell fetish theme until my best friend read the manga and told me. I bumped it up my reading list after that because the premise was so unique to me and I was intrigued. I knew it was going to be spicy, and it does have some semi-explicit sex scenes and nudity, but this manga also has one of the cutest, quirkiest romances I have ever read. So, when first glancing at the cover of Sweat and Soap, Volume 1, you might make some assumptions of what the manga is going to be about. It's going to be hot, and it's going to be weird. And then when you start reading it, you think, oh yeah, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. But then, you're mistaken. Now don't get me wrong, it gets pretty weird and hot, but then it transitions into this really unique slice-of-life office romance story. Kotaro is relentless when it comes to sniffing Asako, almost like he's addicted. and it does give off these pervy vibes. But as the story progresses, it becomes strangely endearing. Asako has so much anxiety about her body odor and perspiration, and here is a guy who literally worships the things she hates about herself. And this attention Asako receives from Kotaro gives her self-esteem a boost, and she realizes that she actually doesn't mind being sniffed by him. Cue relationship. What I think is neat is how Yamada Sensei released the first chapter of this manga as a one-off story, which explains the fast pacing of Asako and Kotaro's relationship in the beginning of this series. I found it wonderfully refreshing to see a relationship established so quickly versus slowly building towards something. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the latter, but that's not always how adult relationships function. Sometimes it gets spicy first, and then you communicate your feelings afterwards. Speaking of communication, I need to talk about this couple's wonderful role model quality of a relationship. In earlier volumes, it's clear that Asako has some trouble opening up to Kotaro when it comes to how she's feeling, which makes sense given her timid nature and lack of experience. But Kotaro has a bit of a superpower: his nose. And he can actually smell how Asako is feeling. That's a real thing. I googled it. It's a real thing in science. You give off different smells depending on how you're feeling. So when Asako says she's fine, but isn't fine, Kotaro can smell that sadness or anxiety, and then he reassures her that it's okay to talk about what's on her mind. But sniffing aside, these two really get in the habit of speaking their minds and being open with one another. And this means that miscommunications are resolved almost immediately, which I love. No annoying secrets or unnecessary drama, just two adults adulting in a healthy and mature relationship. This is especially true when either of them has an issue or feels uncomfortable. There's always a discussion that follows. I really found myself rooting for Asako throughout all the volumes because she starts taking steps to be more confident and assertive. For example, at the beginning of volume 2, Asako is looking at scrunchies and she buys a really cute one, which is something she doesn't usually do because she's always felt too plain for cute accessories and clothing. I loved watching Asako pick out outfits or buy new clothes for her dates with Kotaro that she wouldn't have previously worn or purchased in the past. I personally think Asako is very relatable. I have really bad social anxiety and I can be insecure. It's gotten a lot better since I've had kids, but I understand. And it's been really cool to follow Asako building herself up. And Kotaro helps, of course, but he can only do so much, and then the rest is up to Asako. To those that have read the manga, Volume 5, the bento box scene moment thing, you know what I'm talking about. I loved how Asako handled that situation. I just think she has fantastic character development and progression. I was really cheering her on, especially through that scene. Kotaro is really sweet too, and I love how devoted he is to Asako. He ends up being in some awkward situations throughout the series, but he always handles these situations with finesse, maturity, and respect. He's incredibly honest too, and appreciates honesty from others, which encourages and supports the healthy communication theme of this manga. I want to add that I have a huge level of admiration for Kotaro because he recognizes and respects Asako's boundaries when it comes to his fetish. There are some moments where his sniffing gets a little carried away. For example, he asks Asako not to wash a shirt she's recently borrowed after it's gotten all sweaty. And the series has these instances pop up throughout the series where Kotaro's perviness gets a little out of hand, but Asako always puts him in his place, which is great. It's comedy gold. These situations, they're always hilarious, and they make me laugh out loud every time. In addition to the main characters, Yamada-sensei has written some fantastic supporting characters. There are a couple characters I feel are worth mentioning in this review, and first is Chief Okura, Asako's supervisor. He's so kind-hearted and sort of acts like a mentor figure. I love him dearly. Everyone deserves a Chief Okura in their life. The second character I want to mention is introduced in volume 2, and that's Asako's little brother Keita. Keita is a sweet boy. Well, I think he's a man, actually. I think he's like 24. But he's slightly overprotective when it comes to his big sister, which really elevates the comedy in the story. Even though Keita gives Kotaro a hard time, he still acts rationally, and I admire his sensibleness. It's hilarious watching Kotaro and Keita interact, especially in the later volumes. They make a really funny duo. Okay, so by the end of volume 5, readers have a pretty good understanding of Asako's family and her background. I really want to explore Kotaro's backstory more, especially about his family, particularly his mom. Also, how did he become so good at recognizing and making fragrances? Yamada-sensei has definitely teased some things, but I'm so thankful we have at least 5 more volumes to find out more. This manga does not have high stakes. It's very true to the slice of life genre and is always painting a realistic, mature romance between adult characters. Yamada-sensei has found a great balance between their use of semi-realistic, low drama events and lovey-dovey relationship cuteness. Who knew that reading a healthy couple navigate normal relationship milestones would be so welcoming? Honestly, I think that's why the smell fetish and sex scenes marry so well with the story, because I feel like without them, the story would almost be boring, and those scenes actually help retain the reader's attention. I have to applaud Yamada-sensei's artwork in this manga. It's so beautiful and wonderfully expressive. The characters' body language and facial expressions, they're easy to read, and I appreciate the clean lines and details. Also, the sexy fetish scenes, they're tastefully drawn, they aren't cringy, quite the opposite in fact. They're kind of hot. I wouldn't say I have a smell fetish, but I can relate a little bit to Kotaro and his love for smelling Asako. I love smelling Brad, like when we hug, I always take in a whiff, especially if he's been working in his woodworking shop. Fresh cut cedar smell, it's the best. As for my star rating for Sweat and Soap so far in the series, I'm going to give it 5 stars. This year has been so good for new manga, which is interesting to me. Either I'm going to keep this momentum and I'm going to keep reading really good manga, or it's gonna start going downhill. And that, friends, is my review of Sweat and Soap volumes 1 through 5. I would love to hear what you think in the comment section below, and I encourage and welcome constructive criticism so that I can write better reviews in the future. If you're interested in more videos from me, you can check out my end card where I'll have my most recent videos. I hope you all have a manga-nificent day, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye! I don't know why, but all this talk about whiffing and sniffing has got me thinking about those smelly markers. You know, the ones that you can find in like any kindergarten class. Everyone always fought over like the cherry and the orange marker, and I was always in the corner like sniffing the black licorice one.